Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Tam High's PTSA, the Redwood PTSA, the Drake Fund, in collaboration with Ross Valley Healthy Collaborative, I'd like to welcome you to our program, My Digital Tattoo, Parenting in the Digital Age, Social Media and Beyond. Before we get started, I want to read something from this book, LOL OMG, just to kind of give you a very quick synopsis as to why it is so important that we focus on our digital footprint. Your permanent record is real. The idea of a permanent record used to be a myth by school teachers to scare kids into behaving, lest their bad behavior be written down in some alleged file that would haunt them forever. Now, though, for better or worse, the permanent record is real and has arrived in the form of the internet. The mistakes that students make today are easily searchable and immediate, accessible, might actually haunt them forever. High school is a place to experiment, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and in the process find yourself. Many high school students, for example, are sharing their first romantic relationship, exploring their sexuality, and challenging their political and religious beliefs, all of which are an important part of growing up. But imagine if every one of your mistakes during this time was being captured and shared with everyone you know. Worse yet, imagine that mistakes were shared with a complete stranger and thousands of complete strangers, and not just today, but for the rest of your life. Indeed, this is exactly what can happen if you are careless about your digital decisions. Many of today's students are finding themselves in a very real permanent record, one that reflects every poor decision of their youth and is stored online forever. It sounds pretty bad, doesn't it? The good news is that it is very doable. Managing our digital footprint is very doable, and we're very fortunate today to have with us the folks from My Digital Tattoo to share with us how we can get started. I'd like to, actually, why don't we have you introduce yourself, since we've changed who's going to be speaking, please.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Erica, and I am the co-founder of My Digital Tattoo, along with Gloria, who's my other co-founder. We've been in business for about 5 years, and we've had the incredible opportunity to speak with over 16,000 kids in small and large group settings. So our hope tonight is to be able to share what we're learning from our kids with you. I'm also the mom of 2 boys who are huge gamers. I don't know if there are any gamers out here. I have one 16-year-old and one 19-year-old. Eric already said I'm Gloria, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been a college professor for 20 years. I'm the mother of 3 young men, and I want to say something about social media, which is such an interesting topic in so many ways, and what you read is so timely. Our kids are really living for what we have experienced, certainly with my own boys and with the kids we've worked with, is there is no on or off anymore. It really is all one world, right? And I know when this began, my boys are in their 20s. My husband, who's a psychologist, would look at me and say, I don't like it. I'm not wild about it. And we would have these debates and go on for quite a while. And what we got to was, the reality was that it was an is. Whether we liked it or not, we had to figure out some way of being okay with this world and recognizing that our values were so incredibly important in supporting our kids. And as we look at it in My Digital Tattoo, is using social media for social good. So it is and is. It is a different world than any of us grew up in. It's so great for me to see a lot of you in the audience that can speak to this from your heart because you know it. We have learned more working with kids all over California, and they're the experts. But adult input is critical. And my hope tonight is that you leave not feeling fearful and frozen. And actually, I'd love to see a show of hands. How many of you wish you were raising your kids before the era of social media? And look around. You're not alone, right? I mean, so my husband and I would go back and forth on this. If you can leave tonight feeling like you have the skills to do this, and if we can just reinforce the parenting that you're already doing, because our feeling is good parenting is good parenting, on or offline. And if we can reinforce that and you can leave tonight with a sense that you can do this, we will have done our job. We're not interested in converting you to loving social media. We are media neutral at My Digital Tattoo. We've seen it used for amazing collaboration and amazing projects from the students we've worked with, and we've also seen it used in ways that are concerning, that leave digital footprints that can be concerning for our kids. So our goal tonight is to take you into the world of the students we've worked with and share what we've learned from them. So this is the perfect segue to start with, the power and the challenge. We see the power of social media. We recognize that there's so much our kids can do with technology. There's learning and collaboration that can happen that has never happened before. We work with kids all over that have been able to create things in communities and touch people from all over the world and feel that they have a place in the world. We're hearing from our students that they feel more politically activated than they ever have. We're hearing from our kids that are using live streaming that they really feel like they're seeing things in real time and they feel like they have a voice, which is so incredibly important. And we also know that it has its huge challenges. There's no question about it. We recognize the power and the challenge of social media. So you're gonna see Erica and I going back and forth tonight. She's gonna start this part of it. And actually we wanna show you a video of our students. We work with student advisors all over, different ages, middle school and high school, and they're gonna talk about their feelings of what they see the challenges are. And I'm curious for the teenagers in this audience how this resonates with you guys.
Social media, things can easily be misunderstood, given that it's all in the moment, very rapid.
It gets rid of this personal contact, this sort of emotional attraction to someone that you just cannot get online.
Using social media among teens and people in general is just a lack of conscious using.
Just getting caught up in the moment, just trying to get those likes and forgetting about that the people you're interacting with are human beings as well.
If you don't have that person-to-person contact, how can you ever get better at it? How can you ever get comfortable and confident? And I think that's a big problem, because otherwise people are just going to be hiding behind the screens all the time.
So I appreciated what Gloria said to ask you if it resonates with you guys, but I also want to point out that we're going to be here for about 90 minutes talking to you and giving you big generalizations of the things that we hear from kids. My assumption is that you'll find some pieces of your kids in something that we're talking about, or one of their friends that's struggling. I want you to see it as a colander. I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you, the things that stick for you and your family. I hope you go home with things that maybe you used to do and you want to get back to. But this is, I do want to point out that every family has their own rules, own ideas, own values about social media. So I wanted to start out with kind of reminding us about something I think is really important, and it's because I have these two boys that I raised as big gamers. They actually play esports for their high school and college on teams, and they spend a lot of time behind devices, and it took me some time to think about how different I thought they were growing up than how I grew up. And I wanted to remind you that really when we look at kids developmentally, they're doing the exact same things we were doing as kids, just on a different platform and a different stage. So our teens really seem to be using social media to accomplish the same eternal goals that kids have had forever. They are socializing with their peers. And many of our kids, and I don't know if this is true for you guys, will say that they're so overscheduled that those little bits of communication or contact with people is their way of staying connected. It's their way of saying, I'm still here and connecting. They're investigating the world around them. They're learning about things that they're interested in. They're using YouTube and Musical.ly and things to relax and have fun and be in the mix. They're trying on identities, trying on avatars and personalities and new things that are hard. My son, who is a gamer, is very shy, and when he started gaming when he was in the 9th grade, it was like his entry into a whole new world of people that understood him. He took on leadership roles. He was able to try things in digital space that he could then apply into his real offline life. We hear kids telling us sometimes that they're creating their avatars and it's taking them an hour to get dressed in their avatar, the same way that it took us maybe an hour to get dressed before we went out. That there's a lot to do with how we look when we put ourselves online. But mostly, I think they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, which is establishing independence. And that's where I want them to be. I want them, you guys, to be taking risks on our watch so that we can help navigate it. And even though you guys might be telling us that you don't want us involved, I think it's our job as parents to guide you. And for me, the job was really to move from manager when they were really little and I could decide who their friends were and what they were doing and for how long, to a consultant, where if we're not so scared of what they're doing, they'll come to us when they're having problems, which is gonna happen. They're gonna slip under, there's gonna be drama with friends, there's gonna be content pushed at them that they don't know how to deal with. And if we're not so freaked out by what they're doing, they may be more likely to come to us. Because for me, my goal with Alex when he moved to college was to be able to self-regulate, not to send him to college to game till 3 in the morning, and to be able to self-advocate for himself. Because if I just took him from my house and had all these filters and timers and everything, I wasn't really giving him what he needed to launch him into college. I want to talk a little bit about this evolving landscape, which I think is really, really fascinating to me. And one of the things that I love is that kids are telling us that one of the things that happens when they're online is that they're searching for fame and recognition, that they want to be noticed and seen. And I remember in middle school really struggling with, I want to be invisible, but I also want people to see me. And I think if we put ourselves back there, we'd remember that that's such a conflictual time. But our kids are saying that some of them are looking to be famous. And that things like our reality TV shows or YouTubes that go viral make it seem like we can get famous overnight. Or my gaming kids say you can get sponsored, you can get people to subscribe to your channel. So it's not so far off, but that they're often searching to look for acceptance. They're hoping to be noticed, to put themselves out there so someone will see them. They're making sure that people don't forget about them, so there's a lot of code switching in terms of how often you post and what happens if you don't get enough likes, that they're really struggling to stay relevant. I want to say that again, to imagine what it feels like to have to be in a place where you're struggling to stay relevant. Those of us who work in places may know that, but really what it must feel like for a teen to try to stay out there in a positive way. They're also doing a lot of what I call strategic posting. I don't know if you guys will believe this, but our teens will tell us that there's a prime posting time. There's a good time to put it out there when you know you're going to get your most likes. Do you agree with this? That if you don't get enough likes, sometimes you take it down and re-put it, or you go ahead and ask your friends to like it, or ask before you put it out there. But that they're really thinking about the way that they're putting themselves out there. And I loved this quote from this kid that we work with this summer in our internship program. As he said, your online reputation is kind of a trailer to your movie. You have to make people interested enough to watch it. That was so powerful to me. Don't you agree? It's like you got to put the highlights there. And so there's that positive thing about putting the highlights, but it can also make other people feel bad if we're watching somebody's highlight reel all the time. I thought I would talk a little bit about what the IT site is. Do you guys think there is an IT site? Is there one site? Anybody remember this game Whack-A-Mole? So I kind of think that there actually is no IT site anymore. When we first started this business, it was there was MySpace and then Facebook, and we were really clear that we needed their passwords and we knew where they were, sort of like being in our backyard. And now we're finding that it's kind of like a whack-a-mole game, that every time Gloria and I do this parent presentation, which is a couple times a week, we're updating our apps, we're updating what kids are telling us. And so it can get really exhausting. And I'm going to give you some suggestions to how to engage in conversation. But there really is no IT site. And for me, as soon as my parent would arrive at a party I was at in the 11th grade, I'd want to leave. So it's not surprising to me that whenever we get on board with something, they're leaving those places. They're doing a lot of what we call code switching, and I'm curious, I'm not going to keep posting at you guys, it's just that the camera's right there, so you just happen to be there. But one of the things we hear them saying is that they actually are on various different apps for different groups of people, that they have certain behavior that is acceptable on each of the different apps, that sometimes they're just watching or lurking, sometimes they're participating, but it's doing an amazing amount of code switching. And if you're ever interested in hearing, like, what are the rules, that's a great question to ask your kid. So I want to look at this. Now, Pokemon Go was so great because it got all of our kids out and moving and connecting. We even had parents in the front seat of cars taking pictures and participating and coming together. But like anything in a whack-a-mole game, we've kind of seen Pokemon Go have its day. It was, my kids, when it came out, my kids said, it's going to pop for a couple of weeks and then it's going to go down. Would you agree with that? Pokemon Go kind of out now? Do you think? Yeah. All right, so our kids are also telling us that they use Facebook Messenger a lot for communicating. So they're no longer on Facebook. Anybody have any idea why they're not on Facebook anymore? Because we're on it, right? And one kid told me the other day, because Facebook is for the elderly. I'm like, okay, that is a little much, but I'll accept it. They are connecting with family members, they are checking their Facebooks, but a lot of them are just getting the Facebook Messenger app as a way of communicating without having to pay for their texting services. Now, I'm just wondering if some of the parents wanted to take a shot at some of the other things that are up here to give me an idea of what's up here. Now, anybody want to take a guess at any of them? How about that one with the rainbow and the faces? Any guess? That one is called Followers Plus, and one of the reasons I'm putting it out there for you, you can see if you have ghost followers, you can see analytics, basically. You can see how well your posts are doing, what was your best post, and it gives who followed you, who unfollowed you. Just want you to put yourself in that place for a little while about what that feels to have that constant feedback of when someone's your friend, not your friend, what was your best, what was your top performance. Not everybody, again, has these, but these are the ones we're hearing in the last couple weeks from kids. How about the one to the very right? Anybody have an idea on that one? Do you guys know that one? Anybody? That's Facetune. We call those our plastic surgery apps. They're really quite addicting. If you try one on, you'll see that you can whiten your teeth or make your nose smaller or make yourself look better. And then usually we see the kids do #NoFilter, which we kind of laugh about. But that kids can spend a long time, and it can be very addicting to change your look. Anybody know the red circle? Musical.ly is the red circle. There's also a Lively that we can do in real time. Musical.ly is a karaoke app that I just love. I have so much fun with my kids doing karaoke apps, but we want to make sure that they don't get caught up in the moment and get a little too seductive and sexy in what they're putting out there in order to get followers, or fans as they call it. How about that calculator app? Those are called vault apps, and they hold pictures that your kids don't want you to see. Sort of makes sense to me that we should have that as a kid. I had a diary with a lock on it and hidden somewhere. So these are their vault apps. The next one is House Party and Uvu. Those are both group video texting apps where we can talk with each other. And of course, anytime I think all these apps are awesome, but anytime any big group of anybody gets onto something, it can get inappropriate. So that can get inappropriate. Twitch, anybody know Twitch? Twitch is where, you know Twitch. Can you describe it?
It's a streaming service.
And we can watch people live streaming games, right? That there are people that we might be interested in. People used to say to me, why would you want to watch someone streaming a game? Why would you want to watch it? My answer is, why do we want to watch football or basketball or anything else? These are people that the kids really like and respect and can learn a lot from their playing games. So I want to talk a little bit about the last two, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but I want to share with you what our kids are saying about these apps. How are they using Instagram? Now, I feel like I'm giving your life away here, but it's mostly, I think you should be doing this, that you have two accounts, your private and your secondary account. We have our secondary account, or our private account is the one that we post more often, that we have a closer knit group of people on, and where we have our public Instagram is more where they're doing the posting strategically every couple of days. Many of our kids tell us that they use it as a barometer of popularity, that they really like to gain friends. And I'm always saying, it's really important every once in a while to take a look at who you're friends with, what they represent, and that we can hide some of those friends, but they are often defining themselves by the number of likes they have. We have kids who say they spent their whole weekend making it look like they had a life on Instagram, curating a look. It can also be used for retaliation and exclusion, and I'm wondering if any of the kids can describe what a blim is. A blim is a subliminal message. I think we've all seen them where you say something like, she thinks she's all that, and everyone knows who it is, but we haven't said the person's name. It's kind of like going underground and putting something out there that can be hurtful. I don't know if the kids out there will agree with me, but it seems to me like snaps are replacing texts. And I'm happy about that because I think kids are getting verbal face communication, but they're moving away from texting and moving more into snapping. I absolutely love Snapchat because you don't have to be picture perfect. You can do silly, ugly pictures. You can be in the moment. But we have heard that, as Gloria was saying, with the positive and minus, that there's some downsides to some of these. Like the downside to Snapchat. We had a kid the other day tell us, you know, I hate when there's a party going on in live time and I know exactly where it is and I'm watching it and I can't not watch it. It's hard not to know, but you know, it's happening right there. So really helping our kids realize maybe we don't have to post everything, to kind of think about who's not included and whether we can just keep those videos or actually enjoy the party without putting it out there to try to be popular. Of course, the idea that it goes away is very addicting and exciting. And I think by the time they're in high school, we worked from 3rd grade to seniors. And by the 3rd grade, they pretty much know that everyone can take a screenshot and that it's kind of too late once you get notified that someone's taken a screenshot, and that rumors can start even by people looking at it. So reminding kids what they put out there is their publishing is permanent. Would they want to see it on a billboard, on your freeway, or on the Golden Gate Bridge? And that screenshots can often be used for revenge. And I was talking to you a little bit at the beginning, and you were mentioning streaks and scores. Streaks and scores. Can anybody give an example of a streak and a score of the kids? Can you?
It's like how many days you've been like back and forth Snapchatting.
Yeah, how many days you've been back and forth Snapchatting. Now, I don't know if this happens at this school, but some of the kids we work say they will actually ask someone to babysit their Snapchat when they go away. So you agree with this? You're giving me the thumbs up so that they can not break their streaks, right? And the scores are how many snaps have come in and how many have gone out. And you'll see that in the front part when you sign on to Snapchat. All right, these are the live streaming apps. I'm going to go quickly through these. Facebook Live, Periscope, and YouNow. As Gloria said, they can be used for its incredible empowerment, but also for cruelty and humiliation. Now, when I started thinking about the anonymous apps, I was really stressed out about it 5 years ago. I was like, this is terrible. When people don't see someone on the other side of the screen, they can be so mean. And I still think that's true. We do need to have empathy building. We do need to, as Gloria said, continue to parent our kids to step in someone else's shoes, to treat people as we'd like to be treated. But there's some new stuff that I'm learning about these anonymous apps that I find interesting. And that's that sometimes it allows kids who are struggling to be able to divulge parts of themselves that they hide off, that they may not feel comfortable talking about in their offline lives. It really, for some kids, they'll tell me that it provides a platform for them to process their struggles or their interests, that they can go online, and maybe there are people who aren't interested in what they do, but in their online lives they can do it. I do want to remind you, though, that you are the experts of your kids, and if your teen is struggling with body image, gender identity, depression, anxiety, all the things that are likely to come up in our kids' life, it is likely that it's going to follow them into their online lives. It also can lead to group cruelty and risk-taking and self-harm. These are the three you might want to ask your kids about. I don't know if you guys know any of these. Yik Yak, Burn Book, and Secrets. I also want to talk a little bit about where they're going for help, and I'm not going to go into this terribly, but there are many places on the top where the kids are self-diagnosing themselves, sometimes many months before they'll go to a doctor, and so encouraging our kids to come to us if they're worried about something. The last three are places where they can get amazing support. The first one is the Butterfly Project for cutters. The second one is the It's Get Better campaign for gay, lesbian, transgender, and questioning youth. And the last one is the Semicolon Project, which really helps kids who are struggling with depression to say, it's not the end of the sentence, there's a midpoint. And at that site, I really feel like kids are putting them in places where they're getting positive support and help. Our kids are also using technology for wellness, which I love. And if you guys don't have this yourself, I really recommend you getting it, and I recommend you encouraging your kid to have at least one of these on their application. The first one is Buddhify. Second one, Happify. The last one is Breathe. Has anybody seen any of these? They're all great ways of getting kids to think about relaxing and enjoying their body. The next one is Sleepbot. The one after that is MyFitnessPal. And what I love about MyFitnessPal is we did it as a family, and it really helped us to see about the food we were taking in, how many calories things were, how many steps we were taking. It really kind of made us more of a mindful family about what we're eating. The last one is Map My Run. Oh.
Maybe we should, you want to show that one because I'm looking at
Oh, is it time?
5.
Okay. I think, let's see. That went quickly. Wait, just half an hour? Didn't we start at 7?
5 minutes.
Okay, all right. I want to say something about being curious, not furious, about what your kids are doing online, because I know that when I started doing this work, I would get so mad at my kids. I'd say, your brain is turning to mush, and you're not going to learn anything, and when I was your age, I was outside, which really I was probably on the phone right after I got home from school till all hours of the night, and probably gossiping and writing letters to people that I liked. But one of the things that I think about being curious and furious is really asking your kids about what kind of apps they're using, why they like them, why they're interested in them. And there were two things that I got from my kids that really made me realize how important it is to be curious, so they want to come to us. The first one was that my son Adam said to me, you know, Mom, you know everything about Adam's lacrosse game. You know the people he plays with, you know the rules of the game. You don't even like lacrosse. You know, you come every Saturday and you sit out there. It's probably true. I'm not happy to be there on a Saturday morning. He said, you have never once asked me about my gaming life. Who Ramen Bowl is, what the rules of the game is, how you win, how do you get positive points for being a good citizen. And the more we started talking about it, I couldn't get him to stop. He also told me something that was really helpful. We used to get into big battles around dinner time and getting off the game. And I'd be like, you need to get off the game now. And we'd get into these battles because I had decided I was hungry and it was time to eat. And he would say, Mom, when you get me off the game, it's akin to going onto the soccer field, pulling me off and saying, you know, let's go now. I'm letting my friends down. I'm going to be banned from playing the next game because the coach is going to be mad. And the more I started to learn about that, the more I was like, wow, we can get him to self-regulate by asking me, Mom, when is dinner? Do I have a time for a 45-minute game? And then we can put that responsibility back to them so that we're sending them out into the world with that thinking. So I'm going to pass it over to Gloria.
Do you want to talk about the digital resume a little bit? Because you have a few more minutes, CJ. Go for it.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought it was to 7:45.
We're leaving a little early for questions.
Oh, okay. I wanted to talk to you because I think this is really important for college stuff, and I know some of you are right there. So one of the things Gloria and I have found out is that we really feel like the Google search has replaced the handshake, and that you guys have paid a lot of attention, and me too, with getting the absolute right tutors and college counselors and volunteer opportunities, and we kind of forget to take a look at our kids' online life, and that many times people are going to meet them, even maybe you've already looked up your kids' boyfriends or girlfriends or friends' family members, many times before you meet them in person. So that digital identity really has to be positive, particularly as we move into social media becoming the new resume. When Gloria and I work in high schools, we talk a lot about it being an iceberg, that 90% of that iceberg is underwater and people don't see. And what we usually see is the iceberg as that top part where we're kind of joking around, where we're kind of posturing, where we may be doing stuff that we're not even doing, but we think it looks cool to put up there. And reminding our kids that people are judging us based on what they can see. They don't have the context of knowing the underneath. And that our job is to help them create a positive e-portfolio, or to bubble up the things that they're proud of. So when someone searches them, a college, a job, a friend, a family member, that they're going to see positive things. So I want you to empower your kids to ask these questions. If we looked you up online, what would we learn about you? And do you think your digital reputation right now would be an asset or a liability? And I often, when we do the 11th and 12th graders, we have them look at their last 10 posts with a partner. They can do it with a friend or with you, and say, what would you say about that person if you just knew them from their last 10 interactions? And that can be really powerful. Or what would they say about you the next day at school? We want you to help them look at their digital resume the same way you look at their resume or their application for college. Does it portray them in a good light? Are they appearing mature or immature, kind or mean? Are they looking like someone who would make good decisions? Or are they holding a red Solo cup and throwing it up in the air when they're under 21 years of age? Is this someone you'd want in your team or community? And the colleges will tell us the reason that they put out this information, the reason that they look for volunteer activities and the reason they check social media is because they want to know if this person's going to add to their community. Are they going to be an asset to the people who are around them in their college? So really thinking about that. We want you guys to review your friends list every once in a while. We're often judged the same way we are offline about the people we hang out with online. So we often kind of don't want to hide people from our feeds or unfriend them, but I'm going to remind you that our vibe is our tribe, and the people who surround us on our social media often say a lot about who we are. Am I being my authentic self? I want you guys to remember to shut down accounts that you have that you don't use anymore, because oftentimes those lead to problems. We forget that they're there, but we want you to shut them down. If you haven't already, I'd like you to open up a secondary email for your college correspondence that's a respectful screen name. That's not one that you made when you were 6 or 8 and it's funny. One that's just for correspondence with colleges so you're not missing them and they're respectful. I want you to think about the trade-off of linking your accounts, because sometimes we want to link our Facebook and our Instagram and our Twitter, and we start linking, and then it just explodes how many people are looking at what we see. So I think that's, Google your name if you can. And I just want to end with this one. Can you clean it up? And I think we've all made mistakes. We've all posted pictures we don't like. People have tagged us in pictures we don't like. When we Google, we often see what's up there. And, I don't believe that one post or a couple of posts or a period of time is going to define a person, but we have to convince the other person. So if you see something you don't like when you've Googled your name, ask the person to take it down. And you would be surprised that people actually don't mind taking it down. You can say, you know what, I really don't like that picture, or I'm worried about how it looks, please take it down. And usually people will. If you have a lot of things that you're embarrassed about or something bad, I want you to flood good things. So start having people post things that are kind about you. Start putting positive things on your site, things you care about, causes you care about, volunteer opportunities. We forget to put those positive things in there. Start flooding those now. And as we say, to forward kindness or spread positivity. So I'm going to turn it over to Gloria, and I appreciate having the extra couple minutes.
Absolutely. As a psychologist and clinical social worker, we are really interested in the psychology of technology or the psychology of social media. And we've spent a lot of time looking at that from our perspective. And I think that's really one of the defining characteristics of what we do at My Digital Tattoo. So as parents, I'm going to ask all of you to go back to middle school or high school. And I'm just curious, how many of you would go back to middle school if you could? You would. Anybody else? How about high school? I had a really good time in high school. I did not love middle school. Okay. So I want you to go back there, and for the students here, you stay exactly where you are, of course, and I'm just curious how this resonates with you. And what Erica said earlier, this is not definitive on everybody. This is sort of a generalization, because we have to speak in generalities as to what we've learned, but we're going to take you into what we have seen about the psychology of what it means to be in social media, and this is what our students have shared with us. So parents back to middle school or high school. Do you remember writing a note like this or anything that looked like this? Okay, so we all did something like this, and I certainly remember doing this. You know, it was, do you like me? Yes or no? And you'd pass it around class, and you know, there's different versions of it now, but that's certainly what mine looked like. A couple of years ago, it looked like this. And now, it looks like this. And it's shifting all the time. But it's still the same premise. It's still about being liked. Because if you go back to middle school or high school, what it's about, and it still is for us too, it's about likes. It's about, as my son would say, it's about social collateral or social currency, is what my oldest son said to me. You know, likes and comments. He would say to me as he got on Instagram, and he's a photographer, I'm just doing it because of photography, but he said, in spite of my best self, I can't stop looking at how many likes I get, and the comments are really important. And so it is that social collateral. It is that sense of our stock going up when people respond positively. And I know as adults, you know exactly what that means too. But when we go back to that period of time where being liked is so critical, it helps us recognize how even more important it is. Does anybody know what I mean by the loop? Or can anybody make a guess here? And what does this have to do with the psychology of social media? Throw it a guess. What do you think?
Being in the loop, being in the know.
Being in the know. Okay, that's a very good guess. Anybody else? Why would I have the loop up here? And I'll give you a little hint. We do student advisory groups, middle school and high school. And one of our high school students went, oh, let me just show you my loop. And then she ran up and showed us her loop. What do you think she was showing us? No idea. But I'm just taking you there. It is that cycle of sites, apps, platforms that we check regularly, often, and religiously, she said. Can anybody relate to that? I want you to think about waking up in the morning, and I want you to, and this is not just for students, by the way, but our students took us into this. They said, this is huge. And when she talked about it, everybody ran up, and we had these pieces of butcher paper, and they began to draw their loops. So we all have our unique loop, and what I want you to think about is, what is yours? And then for all of the students in here as well, what is yours? For one of our students, it looked like this. They talked about starting the day with Instagram, going to Snapchat, going to Vine, moving to Google, going to Messages, YouTube, and in the middle, Spotify never stopped. So that loop went like that all day long. For another one of our students, her loop was far more complex. And what we talk about with our students, and to us this is such a great conversation, is what is your loop? And what does this look like? And how does it impact your mood? And what's always going in the middle? What's always happening there? And part of understanding the loop from our perspective is, which made it very interesting, is what is the psychology or the biology behind it? And that's what I want to get into right now, and talking a little bit about what we have learned, again, from students we've been working with. So I'm going to talk about the impact of social media on the adolescent brain. And I have to say it's not just the adolescent brain, because we work also with communities and with parents and families, and we train physicians and clinicians, and I have to say that it impacts all of our brains. But I want to start with the fact that our brains all of our brains are hardwired to seek new information. We literally get a shot of dopamine with each new ping, with each new like, with each new anything in regards to social media. And I want you all to think about posting and what that feels like when you post something, a picture of your family. It isn't that once a year holiday card anymore. It's that whatever that post might be. And with each new like or with each new comment, we really feel it. What we hear from our students is that texts and tweets are highly perishable, that they lose their collateral if they're not responded to instantly, which is why, according to the students we work with, there's that sense of I have to get back to something right away. There used to be, when we began this work, sort of an acceptable allotted time for not responding to a text message. I'd say 15 minutes. What do you think it is now? What's the acceptable amount of time to reply? Any guesses here with students? Yeah. 30 seconds? 3 minutes? I'd say it's right in there. What would you guys say? 5 minutes? Okay. So we're no longer going for that like I'm off. I mean, like think about it. 30 seconds, 5 minutes, 3 minutes. That is an imperative to be on. And what some of our students have said to us is, if I'm not in the know, then what does that mean? If I don't respond that quickly, then I'm not seen as a good friend. What if there's an emergency? We've also had kids say to us when texting a boyfriend and that boyfriend didn't reply, I'd say about 10 minutes, the assumption was he's dead. It went from not just a reply, but he's dead. So this is a very strong imperative, and that we get that sense of being always on is a very real feeling for the students we work with. Let's talk a little bit, I'm sorry, yes?
Is there any understanding among the kids that if they're driving, it's really okay the way that...
Oh, I'm so going to talk about that, and so hold that question. We're going to talk about that, and I'm so glad you brought it up. It's very important to me as a parent. We're going to talk about that. So there's a couple chemicals in play here. Dopamine. We all have dopamine, which causes us to seek, desire, and search, and look at what it's stimulated by. It's stimulated by unpredictability, small bits of information, and reward, which is exactly what social media is, those pieces. And we have oxytocin, which is called the cuddle chemical, and it releases a feeling of goodwill, love. It's when you get a post and, you know, my son just got married and I put a picture of my father and myself and got back, God, your dad looks so great, and oh my goodness. And I'm reading this and I'm feeling all warm and cuddly inside. So it's not just us, our kids, it's us as well. So if you look at dopamine and oxytocin, between those two chemicals, social networking feels good and it's hard to not want more. And I think that is sort of a universal thing that we have been seeing across the board. So back to the loop, and I want us, we've been doing this with our students, really looking at from unconscious to conscious looping. And I think that this is something that we are seeing a very strong need for everybody. And these are some of the questions that we have been asking our students. What do you notice about your loop? What are you constantly checking? What stays on in the background? What's always in that middle section of your loop and what's always going on? Do you find yourself checking more after a post? And really paying attention to the emotions attached to it, because there's often pretty strong emotions attached to it. And I find the last one really important for all of us to look at. Are we ever free from our loop? Are we ever unable to disengage? And I think that that's a question that we're finding the need to ask more and more right now. And not just of our kids, but of all of us. So, have you seen this picture before? Anyone notice this? Recognize this image? You have seen it before. Okay, so it's about a year old, and I still love it, and it was sent to us by one of our student advisors. So if you look closely, you're seeing a guy on a boat, and he's obviously texting, and then you look a little further, and then you're watching him, and this was sent to us by one of our students. It was in Redondo Beach. It's last year, and we're convinced that he was Googling where to find whales. we're sure that that's what he was doing. And what we know from all the things that were going on around him was there was a boat circling him. This guy was taking video of him and screaming, look up, look up. And he never did. So he missed the grand show. And it begs that question, are we ever free from our loop? That sense of being tethered to our devices and to each other. So when we work, we would do a lot of workshops with students from 3rd grade to high school. And I'm going to take you into a video that we show them. And it's this really old school video, but I want you to pay attention to this. And I want you to think, when we show this to 5th and 6th grade students, actually picture 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students, who do they identify? What do they see after they see this video? So let's look at this together.
Oh my God, okay, I have this story that I've been waiting to tell you for the past couple of days. So have you ever done yoga before?
Yeah, a couple times.
So I went to this new place, super fancy. It's like $17 a class, $2 to rent a mat. I've never even heard of that before.
Is that the one up on Cap Hill?
No, this is my new neighborhood. I moved to Finney Ridge.
Finney Ridge.
Okay, so you know what Shavasana is? It's at the end of class, you just get to lay, they turn the lights off, your eyes are closed, and it's silent, and it's kind of supposed to be meditation, except that I have undiagnosed ADD. Normally it's like 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes if they're being nice. This one just kept going and going. 5 minutes in, this woman starts snoring. 2 minutes later, somebody loudly farts in the middle of Shavasana. Nobody even laughs, so I don't laugh. I don't want to be the weirdo who's laughing in the middle of class. Hey, so class ends and I'm thinking, I don't even know if I want to go back here. This is a weird place. Would you put that thing away?
What? I'm just checking my phone.
It's really annoying.
What?
Okay, I love this video. It's so old school, and I want you to picture, actually I'm curious for students in here and for parents, when we show 5th, 6th, 7th grade students this, who do they see? What do you think they identify with? What connections do they make? Any guesses?
Parents.
Their parents? Students, what do you think? Parents or you guys? Let's look. What we have seen is a real shift in our work over the past 5 years. We have seen a huge shift, and to us, this is a really interesting thing to pay attention to in terms of all of our psychology. What we have found is that when kids see this video, they do not see themselves, they see their parents. When they talk about tethering, when they talk about people being digitally connected 24/7, they do not see themselves at all. They see their parents. And that to us has really been very eye-opening. So we're in classrooms all over, and I want you to picture a classroom of 4th and 5th graders, and they see this video, and their hands are going up, and they're talking about what it means to try to get their parents' attention and not being able to anymore. So this is a quote from one of our 9th grade students. If parents stopped for a second to look behind their iPad and put down the screen, they would realize their kids are right in front of them, and they are trying. When we are in classrooms of 4th and 5th graders, it's amazing when they start to strategize with each other what they do to get their parents' attention. They'll often say, they share strategies. We will wave pieces of paper in front of their faces, we'll scream at them, we'll call them by their full name, whatever it takes. And then what we do is we just give up and we go into our room and get on our own device. And to us, this is a huge call to action. And it's not our call to action for our kids, it's a call to action for us. And we really feel compelled to share this with you because this has been a real shift in what we have seen over the last couple years. And I'd say in the last year, this has changed significantly. The issue of digital tethering. I'm going to move now to Techno Perfection, and Erica talked about this particular app, which is called Facetune. This gives you a sense of what Facetune can do. And again, when Erica described it, I mean, who would not want to whiten their teeth and take every pimple off your face and, just get that smooth skin and you can create that kind of look. I mean, you look at this difference and it's really pretty big. But when we meet with students and talk about this with them, this is a definition from one of our 11th grade girls. What we have found is that because, not just because of this is sort of out there for all of our kids, but having to be perfect, that sense of that what we are seeing a lot of our teens, not all of them, some of our teens internalizing is that beauty is unachievable. That, you know, that question of what is beauty? What does it mean to look right? And we meet with teen advisors all throughout the year, and particularly in the summer when we have a lot of time to do that. And this is a girls' high school advisory group, and what they shared were you know, their strategies for what parents could do to help them. And they said, help us combat media myths. That was one of the things that they told us right away. We would like our parents to help us understand that being thin will not bring you happiness. Model health. The next one was a really important one for the teens we worked with, was start this conversation early. And they often said that their parents start this conversation late, thinking that it doesn't impact them. We've had kids that are 5 and 6 years old saying that they're already feeling this. So talk to us about this early. And the final one is one that we do a lot of when we work with kids. Shift this conversation. What are they trying to sell you? Because they're trying to sell you something, and you're being manipulated. And we have found that there is no middle schooler, no high schooler that wants to be manipulated by adults. And when they recognize that it's a manipulation, there's an ability to push back. And so to us, this is a really important issue. Now, we often change this conversation, and then let's say we're at a group of 6th grade students, we'll say, is this just a girl issue? And we find that the boys in the class will look around and kind of see, okay, how safe am I in this class? All the girls' hands will go up and say, yes, I'm totally feeling this. But what we have found, and this gets them going crazy when we show them this image, because for some reason Justin Bieber just knocks them apart. I can't even fully explain it, but they have a major reaction to him. That they're not supposed to see this image, they're supposed to see that image. And we have them really look at, well, what is it? What are you trying to be sold? What's going on here? And they analyze the fact that they've made his head smaller and his muscles bigger and his tattoos darker. And what are they trying to sell you? And when they can understand that it's Calvin Klein underwear and it's being sold to them by adults, there's this recognition that, you know, there's something I need to push back from. But we really are seeing more boys turning to steroids and PEDs to achieve unrealistic stereotypes. And because it's seen as a, in quotes, female issue, not by all boys, but by some, they're not as able to discuss the pressures. So as the mom of 3 boys, I think it's so important to talk about this. To me, this is a really important issue. Now I'm going to talk about sleep, because sleep is a really big issue. But I'm going to ask you first, how many of you feel like you wake up in the morning and you feel like you're just not getting enough sleep? Just curious. Raise your hands. Okay. Like that the hands are going up. They're kind of going up like this, but they're still going up. I used to say that this is just what teens said about sleep, but we've changed it, because this is what children and teens are saying about sleep now. This is what our 4th graders are saying all the way through high school about sleep. I'm like a short sleeper. This is a quote from one of our students. I go to sleep when everyone else is asleep. 9th grade student. And then he followed that privately by saying, there's always someone up. I mean, there's always someone awake. I sleep with my phone. It's like part of my body. That was an 11th grade student. And I have to add that this is not, I'm actually so glad that you raised your hands, not as middle school and high school students, but as adults, because this is not just children and teens, this is everybody. And we've been watching this very carefully. And certainly, I mean, it's something I've been feeling as well. What we know is that our kids are coming to school with digital hangovers, but we're also going to work with digital hangovers. And I'm looking at people yawning right now, and it's so, we are tired. We are absolutely tired. There's a couple things that we've been paying attention to, and again, our knowledge has shifted as kids have been teaching us. We know that all kids between 9 and 15 are sensitive to light in the evening in general, more than babies, more than adults, more than the elderly. It's something about their chemistry, their body chemistry. So that's a given, that's real. Our first hypothesis was, is it the blue light from digital devices? How many of you think it's the blue light that's keeping us kind of awake at night? Curious, okay, so a lot of us. And there was a lot of wondering about that. We know that with that blue light, there was a question, is it lowering melatonin and making us fall asleep later and then wake up more exhausted? We have a new hypothesis now, and the more we look at this, the more we think this is what's going on. And this is something we have been really talking to kids about a lot. We believe it's the multitasking and the task switching in the last hour before going to sleep that's really causing that brain to just fire up at night. And I want you to picture what that can feel like, and I want you to think of it as adults and as kids. That's that laying in bed with your cell phone or with your iPad or whatever device you have and looking at your homework, maybe looking at a YouTube video, texting a friend, maybe going back to check something out on Google, looking at your calendar for the next day. For adults, maybe looking at some emails, then going onto Facebook for adults, going onto Instagram or Snapchat or wherever it might be, and then you turn the lights off and you try to go to sleep and your brain fires up. And we show an image to our students of what it kind of looks like the more we're hearing it. Literally that brain is just firing up and waking up. It's that task switching in that last hour that's disrupting the sleep cycle, that's causing the short sleeping that our kids are talking about. Not just for them, but for us too. And it's also sleeping with the phone next to your bed, because that temptation to check it, that knowing that someone's up, that ability to connect with someone, our kids have even said to us, I get kind of bored. And then, it's 2 in the morning, I get bored, my brain wakes up, and I just look at my device. So to us, this is such an important conversation because we are in desperate need of sleep, adults and kids alike. And I certainly have experimented it with myself and finding that I have to have that phone away from me so that I can sleep and not get that buzz of a group text or whatever else might be going on. And we have to learn how to develop lifelong strategies for reducing digital distraction. And these are just a few of them and I want to start from the beginning statement which for me is, we can no longer tell our kids, your kids are in high school right now, it's not about telling them, but about engaging them in this conversation. Because right now your kids are really getting, you're in high school, 9th grade, 10th grade, for some of your kids moving on through high school into college, you want them to take these skills with them for the rest of their life. And if we're the ones dictating, we're not going to help them. They need to develop how to do this themselves. So really engaging your kids in this conversation. And here are just some of the ways you can do this. Some of the apps that have been really effective for students we've worked with. The first one, and there's the icon for it, is Stay Focused. You set a time limit for visiting sites that are personally distracting to you. You're the one in charge of that, not your parent, you are. But what a great conversation to have together. Another one is called Simple Blocker, and it's a free Google Chrome extension that blocks access to websites of your choice for a particular period of time that you can set. And that's such an empowering tool, and we're recognizing that we have the ability to do that. And the last one, and there are so many to look at, is one called Rescue Time, right down here. And it's a way of honestly tracking yourself. It helps you keep an honest accounting of sites that you visit, how many minutes you're on them, so that you can assess for yourself, is this getting in my way? What do I keep looping back to over and over again? What gets in the way of my doing homework in an hour and a half, and what makes it last for 5 hours? Because I keep looping back to the same thing. As an adult, what makes a task take so long? What makes it so impossible to finish something that should be so quick? So there are so many ways to do this, but to us, the important message is, how do we engage the conversation of what it means to live in a distracting world? We're all living in a very distracting world right now. How do we do this for ourselves and our kids? And this is a tool that we all need to develop. We're big believers in sacred family time at My Digital Tattoo. We feel very strongly about it. We think that it's important to have sacred family time and zones that are device-free for conversation or alone time. And I just have to share a real story with you again. It's an interesting story for me. One of my sons got married this weekend, and he had a sign that said, you know, stay present, he and his wife, it's amazing to say that, stay present at our ceremony and put your devices away. Be with us in this moment during their ceremony. I have to tell you that their friends had their devices down. Do you know who was taking videos and pictures the whole time? My friends. My parents, my husband's parents. We had a far harder time with it than the kids did. Your kids, by the way, are doing a better job than we're doing. The more we work with students in the classroom, we are always convinced that you guys are going to be the ones that are going to really figure out how to find that balance, how to find that ability to stay focused in a distracting world. We have a lot to learn from these guys. And I watched it this weekend, and it was eye-opening for me. We also need to model how to be present in a world filled with distractions. Because what our students say to us is, Eric and I have heard this so many times, my parent will go, my mom will say, go out and play, you know, get out, do something. And as she's doing that, she's texting. My mom or dad will pick me up from school, and I'm looking, and there's no eye contact. They're in the car, and they're checking Facebook. They're at my soccer game, and they missed the goal, but they told me they're videoing it, but I know they're not. So I think that we need to really pay close attention to what's happening with us around this issue. So, cell phones and driving. So thank you. Okay, huge issue. I love to cycle. I'm not interested in cycling anymore on the streets because I think that we are way too distracted out there. And this has been a big issue for me. I talked with my kids around it who've been driving for a while, and I went, be honest with me, tell me what you're doing. And they went, Mom, we are all on our devices and driving. And all you have to do is look to know that people are. And if we're honest with ourselves, we know we are too. And so to me, this is a huge call to action. And I wanted to share this with you. This is a study, it's a little dated, but I still think it's important. Not that dated, it's 2015. 88% of those who consider themselves, in quotes, safe drivers confess to using apps while driving. These are teenagers that are driving. But check out the second stat. 55% of them said they were updating their parents who said to them, the second I text you, I expect to hear back from you or you lose your device. So that's a very important thing for us to keep an eye on and be aware of. Our students will also say to us, our parents will say to us, don't text and drive, and we know that they're texting and driving. So I know as a parent now of young men who are no longer living with me, that my lectures fell on deaf ears, but what I did is what I see them doing now. So model the behavior you want to see. But there's no question about that. And to me, this is one of the biggest issues that we have to pay attention to. So I think you have to begin this conversation early and often. And what do we do with this? Just like we did with seatbelts and smoking, we have to create a new normal. We have to really work as a community to create a new normal, which means putting the phone in a trunk or a glove compartment or shutting it off. We're actually quickly developing apps for this, but I don't want to wait for the apps. I want us to do some behavior changing right now. And it's not what we say, it's what they see us doing, as I said earlier. So model safety and start this conversation as early as possible and demonstrate this to us, which is the most important thing. So finally, I want to say that overall, this is a group of kids that Eric and I worked with, we are really seeing kids with this high level of knowledge and savvy. We were in a classroom was it just a couple days ago? Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, yesterday, with third graders. And to hear third graders know about privacy and know about setting different kinds of apps and helping their parents with technology. I mean, there is a level of savvy we see that is actually so remarkable, and an ability to keep themselves safe. We're seeing self-awareness, and we're also seeing our kids with this desire to use social media for social good. And for the most part, we see our kids using technology in really positive ways. We still need to really support them with modeling positive behavior and dealing with distraction and really getting engaged. We really believe in leaning into it and not being afraid of it and just supporting your kids all the way through. But in general, we're really seeing our kids using it quite well. And I'm wondering, AJ, did we want to show that last video, using social media for social good? What do you think? I think it is. Okay, maybe it's not. Actually, then let's come on up and let's open it up for conversation right now. We have a few more minutes, and actually that would be good. Let's bring that one on. We're going to show one more video, and then we're going to open it up for some questions. Almost there.
The presentation will be posted onto your
Okay, there it is.
website, so you want to share that with people or take notes when you want to watch it again, it will be posted probably in about a week.
So this video, EJ, say something about this video before you put it on.
We asked kids why parents needed to get curious and learn about what they were doing, and how when their parents get mad at them or tell them to shut it off, that it makes them want to go underground and sneak it, or when you tell them to go outside, they'll just take their device and go outside with their device, and that it's causing this incredible disconnect between parents and kids, because every conversation is an argument around screen time and use. And that, like in my family now, we have forced family fun, where we all leave our devices at home and we go out and we do something fun. So we were asking kids, why is it creating a disconnect? And this is what our kids say.
Everyone, I think, knows that there's issues that come with social media and with the anonymity that social media can provide, but oftentimes it's easy to look the other way, especially if you're a parent.
With social media and putting on all these different hats, with your parents, it kind of creates this gap, and it like separates you kind of, because with your friends, you're putting on this, oh, this is who I am. With your parents, you don't want them to see you as this. You want them to see you as who they raised you to be.
Parents just don't really understand this world of social media, and kids are really invested in it. So if parents don't try to really understand what's going on, then they're just going to become farther and farther apart from their kids.
So let's open it up for some questions right now. Anybody have any questions before we end? Yeah.
Number one, thank you. I thought that was excellent. Thank you for showing how we need to model and parents involvement in all this, because that's very true. And thank you for showing the connection between us passing notes and them on their phones. And my comment on that is, yes, we all pass notes and check if you like me and if he likes you, but I didn't pass 500 notes a day. I passed one a week. And so that's a little disconnect for me. And then secondly, or thirdly, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I respect getting to know what they're doing online. There's got to be some limits here. And what are we trading off when our kids are on Minecraft all day and not outside, or when they're walking and playing on Go and not looking at the trees?
So I will speak to that. I mean, yes, limits are critical for them and for us. There's no question about it. So it is an ages and stages thing in many ways, and I'm going to be honest about that. When we work with parents with young kids, we want them to set really strong limits, because you can as a parent. When you are their manager, you can manage their time. You set screen limits. You set all of these limits that are really critical. When your kids are in high school, you still set really firm limits, but what we're trying to do is back away a little bit, because we want them to set these internal limits. Because if we're the only ones setting limits, but they don't buy it, when they go to college, according to my kids, the kids that have the most intense limits at home And the parents that set them so intensely but they never bought it, those are the kids, in my kids' view, that scared them when they went to college. They took risks that were really concerning. So I want us to set limits, absolutely, but in high school we better engage them in these limits. And I'm going to be honest with you about this too. We've also had 5th graders come up to us, 4th graders come up to us and say, we have the most intense limits you've ever seen, and I want you to watch me hack right now, because I can run circles around my parents with technology. So, and there's no question about that. So yes, limits are important, but engaging that conversation is going to serve you and them far better as they become adults. Does that make sense?
It does, but then if you were to throw out a number, what would you be engaging and discussing with them, yet steering them towards?
Oh, well, okay, steering them towards hoping that we can all understand what is that balance that works for us. I mean, every child is different. I mean, with some of our kids, I could see it with certain kids, in watching television, you could like go like this and they would like not blink. You're gonna have to set stronger limits with that child. For some kids, not. You're the expert on your child. You know. But by high school, this is a dialogue. It's not about saying get off. You have to get off. And I'm setting this limit with you concretely, and you will have no dialogue in it, because they'll run circles. They're so much better than us. So I'm going to hand it to Erica with the rest.
Yeah, I was just thinking that one of the things that works for my son and the other kids, there are a few things. One is to think about the things he loves about his online life and figure out the offline equivalent. So if he likes to do strategy games online, to get him involved in a chess club, or if he likes to watch political stuff online, to get him involved in debate. If he likes to produce Musical.ly videos, to get him to be involved in drama, so that we're actually providing other alternatives rather than just saying get off, you know, to really say, I see what you're doing and you love it there, and here's something you can do offline to kind of balance a little more. And I agree with Gloria that we want them to self-regulate, and some of that means constant reminders. I kind of feel like we have constant reminders on the freeway every so often to remind us to slow down, and they need constant reminders. Take a break, figure out if you need to work in chunks, you know, come back to that. Take a look at how it's affecting relationships. But my feeling is really that temperament is so much a part of this, because the kids who are really online a lot are probably the kids who would have been your social butterflies online, offline, talking to everybody. I have one kid who's not interested in social media at all, and he's kind of a quiet kid. So, do you know what I mean? I think that a lot of times has to do with that.
What about the balance between,
Little louder.
yeah, what about the balance between like respecting your kid's privacy and also knowing what the hell is going on? You know, because there's just like a lot of crap that goes on, and just bullying and weird stuff, and you know, I just leave it alone and don't say anything, and then I freak out and grab it and say, show me what's happening. You know, and that's, I know, not the best way to do it, but what is that balance? And how
That's a really good question. I'm going to say to you that you are the expert on your child. You are your child's expert. And there were times, here's my analogy. I often thought about it like bumpers on the bowling alley. So when I had 3 big risk takers as adolescents. And so they were, when they were young, you know, you have the bumpers on the bowling alley, and you keep them there so they can learn how to bowl. And then you take those bumpers off, and in elementary school, usually they're doing okay, but there are times where those bumpers have to go up to the ceiling. And as a parent, you get that gut feeling that you have to keep an eye. Trust yourself as a parent. They're offline and online are one place right now, really. I mean, it's not like there's 2 different worlds. They don't do it like we do it. There's no switch on and off. It's one world. So if you have a child that's really concerning you, if you have a gut that there's something that you need to pay attention to it. I'd rather err on that side than the other. But if, we've had kids that have said, my parent is lurking constantly, and I am pushing far, far, far away. So we don't want to be that lurker either, because you're going to lose that dialogue. And what's going to keep you close as a parent is that ability to, you want them to come to you when they're struggling, not to push you away. That's a fine balance.
I I always feel like we forget. Remember when our kids were little and they'd be in the back seat and we'd get in the car and they were buckled in and we could continue to have a conversation or listen in. I feel like we need to have those forced family fun times where we take walks and we say, how are your friends going? Do your friends treat you the same online as they do at school? You know, like what's the drama going on? You know, are you coming into anything that's uncomfortable? Or I want to talk to you about something that's worrying me, pornography. You know, I'm worried that you're getting images that are uncomfortable or that degrade women or that are going to give you a false perception, and that we're able to kind of talk about our own values. And that way I feel like I don't have to lurk as much, but I can use things that are important to me, like say, I'm really worried that text neck is happening now because you guys aren't lifting your head up. Or that we're seeing more, it's like the size of a bowling ball, or we're getting repetitive injuries. So I feel like I get those conversations without looking right in.
I just had a thought on that. We also have kids say to us, and my kids said this to me also, if my mom has the psycho mom look on her face, I will push away as far as possible. But if I know that my parent's gonna like listen to me and I'll be able to say something without getting in trouble, or have the device taken away, then I'll be able to go to them. So I think we have to really like think carefully about how they're seeing us.
Have you heard of any other parents that have Snapchat extortion syndrome going on, which is your teen will film you in your ugly moments once in a while. When you're getting mad, when you do, they'll film you and they'll snap it.
Yes.
I am so enraged with that. I mean, I'm like, you will not snap that or you will not eat for a week.
Punishment will be so bad I haven't even thought of it yet.
Snapping it to two people, like, no. I mean, there's that whole aspect that's interesting in
We
parenting
call
now.
that when the kids take the pictures of the aggro parent, the aggravated parent, or we hear the aggravated parent on the other side of a gaming thing where they can't see us and we come in saying something. I think there are rules about respect that have to do back to what Gloria was talking about with parenting, about respecting that you won't put pictures up of them, like they tell us you do, nudie pictures on their 15th birthday and say like, where has the time gone? And that you'll ask permission, and that they need to ask permission. I agree with you. If you're not going to use your device, it's a powerful device. I have a reputation. I know it's funny for you, but it's not for me. And you know, I think taking that away is
absolutely
a footprint of us.
Yes.
That is not in our
list.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. I've been called the meanest mom NA in North America. Because I took away the device for them filming.
What's your feeling
It's a
about
compliment.
the phones being allowed on the campuses? I saw witnessed such a tragedy recently where I went on my son's campus, and back in our day, and way back when, and we're all sitting talking at lunch hours, and we're connecting, and you know, really getting to know each other, and there was this group of 6 high schoolers in a circle, standing silently, all on their phones, not talking to each other.
It's an interesting
like
issue.
broke my heart, and I feel like, I don't know, obviously it's not, you know, it's Drake, and it's not, and there's this whole piece, I hear what you're saying about you can't force and let it be their choice, but part of me feels like, gosh, wouldn't it be great if they weren't allowed to have those phones at school? And then they really were, it was like, and there was no social element, it was just, oh, that's our only option is to connect with each other. How about the phones? I feel like that's a really reasonable thing to.
You know, it's interesting that, and again, we see shifts happening all the time, and we're so curious about this. We see, as our students are moving through high school, and we're hearing our kids say this in our advisory groups, they are setting time limits on themselves where they go, not just time limits, they have digital free times where they go and no one can bring their device. They do this, not their parents are doing it, they're doing it. So we have kids starting to kind of push away and create that, looking for that balance. We're seeing that more and more and more. So we're finding it has this huge allure, middle school, early high school, by not that the allure isn't there, because we feel it too, but they're starting to set these very, very real limits. We also hear kids say to us, from an adult viewpoint, it looks like we're totally not connected, and we are way connected. We may be texting each other, we may be looking at musically together, we may, to an adult eye, it looks like we're not connected, but we are connecting. So there's these different ways of seeing it, but we're also watching them self-monitor as they get older. And
they will always say that nothing replaces face-to-face conversations.
They do
and
say
a
that.
reminder to them, which I think is important for all of us, that when a device is within view, like it was in that video, that we have a hard time going deep in conversation. Or if a game is open and we're wondering whether we're going to level up or who's online to play, we can't give our full attention. And I think that's a conversation not about put the devices away, but saying this is what I'm worried about. I want you to have close relationships. And I've heard that when a device is there, it's hard to go deep or to concentrate.
Yeah, I just think it's hard that if some of these kids feel that way, but then all their other friends have it. That's why I just feel like some private schools are getting on board with going, you can have your phone in your backpack to call your parents later when you need to reach them, but there's no phones on campus.
Well, we do believe, for example, like at sleepovers, on car rides, that devices should not be there. We have heard from kids before that having devices at sleepovers, it's like things can go way south. And also in car rides, it feels like secrets are being told, or it again goes south. I mean, I think that again, communities coming together and saying, let's work together on this is really important.
I kind of feel like our parents did that. Like in my family, we couldn't answer the phone at dinner, or you didn't call someone after 9 o'clock because it was disrespectful.
Right.
Now your kids are in high school, but if you have younger ones, you can start that trend of talking to your friends' kids and saying, hey, let's decide that no devices, that devices go to bed at 9 o'clock, that it's rude, you know?
And it goes for us too. Again, and I'm going to be honest with you about this, when students talk to us, they'll say, oh no, it's not us. We're sitting at dinner and my dad says, oh wait, it's different for me because I'm working. No, I'm finishing up a work email. So I think we have to really recognize that we cannot just give a rule, a regulation, and then leave ourselves out of it.
I was just thinking about the kids who say that their parents' phone calls and texts are keeping them up after they go to sleep, that ringing in the next room or that buzzing is keeping them up.
Thank you.
We like to be liked, of course, so follow us on Facebook.
Thank you very much, and please do look for the video. Also, for those of you who were wondering about privacy and online, there's a great article, Psychology Today, December 6, 2013. I just read it, Why Teens Need Online Privacy. You read that, and then you go to circleofmoms.com, and you get onto that blog where you hear these crazy 37 moms talking about what they do to spy on their kids. It's very helpful. We'll go ahead and post that as well. Thank you for attending. Bye-bye.